Why did I come here? To immerse myself in a sublime landscape? To in some way be a witness to the change that is happening here? We think by feeling. What is there to know? I feel my fate in what I cannot fear. I learn by going where I have to go. I look through my camera. Landscape is how a cinematographer frames the world around them, or the world of a story. It's a way of quantifying and handling space relative to the camera and therefore the viewer. Landscape is the freest element of a film, the least burdened with servile narrative tasks, and the most flexible in conveying moods, emotional states, and spiritual experiences. The Arctic is a landscape gouged and carved by ice. My senses are overwhelmed by the sheer scale and spectacle of the places I find myself in. How does one approach a landscape that is disappearing in front of our eyes? How do I use my camera to tell that story? If an artist is moved by a landscape, if it evokes memories and associations, even subjective ones, then this will in turn affect and move an audience. To be so moved by a landscape, one has to be open to the potential for being truly vulnerable in the world. To be shaken by it. The sublime experience has 3 stages. First is apprehension, in which the human subject encounters an object larger and greater than the self. Second is awe, wonder, fear, even terror, in which the human recognizes the relative greatness of the object and the relative weakness or limits of the self. And thirdly is exaltation, in which the human is conceptually or psychically enlarged as the greatness of the object is realized and the human identifies with that greatness. Then suddenly the mole felt a great awe fall upon him. An awe that turned his muscles to water, held him, and rooted his feet to the ground. With difficulty, he turned to look for his friend, and saw him at his side, cowed, stricken, and trembling violently. Isn't that what we're all searching for here? An instance of emotional impact or a creative spark to hit us just from being in and witnessing the sublime landscape? A moment of trembling? We take our photographs, capture images, shoot footage. Are we not hunters then? Are we pilgrims? Or pornographers? My own presence as a cinematographer here, the very act of my listening and watching, recording sounds and framing images, changes the meaning of the moment. Why can't I just be here, now? Can anything I make get even close to honoring the landscape for what I am taking from it now? The emergence of the Anthropocene has meant not a new image of the world, but rather a radical change in the conditions of visuality and the subsequent transformation of the world into images. Welcome to Pyramiden, an abandoned mining settlement and an icon of the Anthropocene in the middle of the Arctic. Welcome to the extract economy. We came, we took, we left. And then we return as tourists to consume the landscape in new ways. Is it this behavior that best defines us as a species? By what we choose to leave behind, as much as what we take away? I snap pictures of a haunted landscape, ruined homes and broken amenities, goose flesh, ghost flesh. I try not to think about children mining cobalt in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is then turned into the lithium batteries in my phone and my cameras. Try not to think about columbite, tantalite, or cassiterite, or wolframite and other blood minerals that contribute to the circuitry of the technology I use every day. I try not to think about my own children and the challenges they will face in their lives. I try not to think of words like home, or belonging, or loss, or grief. Who can live with this consciousness and not wake frightened at sunrise? The events set in motion by global warming have a more intimate connection with humans than the climatic phenomena of the past, because we have all contributed in some measure to their making. They are the mysterious work of our own hands, returning to haunt us in unthinkable shapes and forms. The cinematographer is unwell. The cinematographer cannot sleep. The cinematographer feels a suffocating weight of guilt. The cinematographer has lost his capacity for empathy, and all of his self-compassion is gone. The cinematographer lives in dread fear of his camera. The cinematographer has seen enough. The cinematographer is so fucking angry. In spite of all of the beautiful colors and shapes surrounding him, his very presence in this place disturbs him. He judges himself as he judges others around him. He asks impossible questions of himself. What good are you in this world? How do you stay with the trouble when the trouble is you? Why did I come here? I shouldn't have come. It took me 2 planes to get here. It'll take another 2 to get me home. The cinematographer cannot stop thinking about his children. The cinematographer is so scared. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. There is a pleasure in the pathless woods. There is a rapture on the lonely shore. There is society where none intrudes, by the deep sea and music in its roar. I love not man the less, but nature more. Sometimes one hopeful gesture is all it takes to bring you back. A random act of kindness. An attempt to bring me out of myself. A playful offer from one of the scientists on the ship to look at my blood under a microscope. Every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Do I contradict myself? Very well, I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes. I spend the morning playing with my blood, adding ice water to it, changing it, watching the cells slowly swell and burst. And in the afternoon, I go outside. My tongue, my eyes, every atom of my blood formed from this soil, this air, this ice. Through my camera, I look down on my blood, look down on the glacier, from the micro to the macro. I begin to feel a sense of in-betweenness and interconnectivity. Once scale is removed, then one can start to recognize experiences shared between all things, be they human or non-human, glacial or anthropological. These forces of encounter illustrate that our very existence is relational to nature. We are fundamentally unseparate from each other, from all beings, and from the universe. We inter-are. We inter-be. There is not us and the landscape, but a kind of oneness. Breathing in, I give thanks for my eyes. Breathing out, I smile to my eyes. Breathing in, I see myself as a flower. Breathing out, I feel fresh. Breathing in, I see myself as a mountain. Breathing out, I feel solid. Breathing in, I see myself as still water. Breathing out, I feel calm. Breathing in, I see myself as space. Breathing out, I feel free. Staying with the trouble requires learning to be truly present. Not as a vanishing pivot between great or awful pasts and apocalyptic or hopeful futures, but as human beings entwined in places, times, matters, and meanings. I am here, now. I look through my camera. I am a cinematographer, a father, a husband, a son, a brother, a friend. In almost all ways, I am so much like you. I am a subjective and unique human being, one of nearly 8 billion. Alone, and yet connected. We look through my camera, but we are not just spectators. Within the framework of the Anthropocene, I believe that there is a fourth stage to the sublime experience. An instance of realization, of being in the world, of letting go and acceptance of the interconnectivity between the human and the landscape. an eco-sublime moment. Within the eco-sublime moment, as the ice begins to shear and crack, I realize that I have a direct responsibility in the changing behavior of this glacier, in how often and how quickly it shifts and collapses. The way I live changes this. As the glacier calves, I feel wonder and loss. As my camera takes us towards, through, and beyond the eco-sublime moment, I feel fear and empathy for this landscape. I feel fear and empathy for myself. As I take something from the landscape, so a part of me belongs to this place now. I am bound to it. The mythologies of our landscapes are changing. We need to rewrite them with ourselves as an integrated part of the narrative, and not as the main character. If landscape is how we see the world out there, distant and separate to us, and if the sublime landscape is how we, the human, see ourselves in front of and awed by nature, perhaps how we see ourselves within and as a fundamental part of eco-sublime landscapes will start to inform how we think and feel about ourselves and our place within a world increasingly defined and limited by climate breakdown. Wherever there are stories being told, there is hope. Loss, grief, resilience, responsibility. The work of artists in the time of the Anthropocene is to stare these things squarely in the face, to stay with, engage in, and even play with the trouble. As artists living in this time, I believe we must seek to find the balance of evoking pathos in the hearts of our audiences and provoking empathy in their minds. We need to be brave enough to suggest that some ways of thinking, ways of seeing, and ways of being need to be reconceptualized and nurtured afresh. We have to be, above all things, passionate. There will continue to be great beauty and eco-sublime moments in the difficult and painful times ahead. As artists, we must seek them out, to paint them, photograph them, write songs and tell stories about them, so that others may experience them and be inspired by them too. We need to prepare ourselves for heartbreak. We must learn to lean into it as it hits us like an avalanche. But there is also hope in heartbreak, for it shows us what we stand to lose and what matters to us the most. More than ever, we must live, feel, love, and engage with all of the seriousness and joy, the complexity and absurdity of being alive. For this earth will grow cold one day, a star among stars and one of the smallest. This, our great earth, will grow cold, not like a block of ice or a dead cloud even, but like an empty walnut. It will roll along in pitch black space. You must grieve for this right now. You have to feel this sorrow now. For the world must be loved this much. If you're going to say, I lived.